Hey guys, it's Tim Shermack, Max Reimer, and we want to welcome you back to the Platform Marketing Show. We're joined today by Jamie Tulak. Jamie, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So what we're going to be talking about this morning is how to build a brand in a community you're not from. I think anyone who's been in real estate for longer than 2 weeks knows that if you're born and raised in an area and you're lucky enough to still be living there and selling real estate there, you have a huge advantage over agents that are not originally from that area, because you just take for granted the way that a fish isn't aware that it's in water, right? You take for granted all of the social connections and family connections and the people that you don't even know, but your family knows. And because your family knows someone, they know you by default, right? And you kind of borrow the credibility of your mom or your dad and the reputation that they have maybe built in a community. If you're not from an area and you move somewhere, you have none of that, right? You don't have a percentage of that. You don't have 50% of that or 20% of that. You have none of that. So Jamie has built an incredibly successful real estate business in the Holly Springs area of North Carolina. She's originally from California. You may know her from Girls with Grit, but we're actually not really going to talk about Girls with Grit today. We're going to talk about everything that came before that, how Jamie built a really successful real estate business and how she's still running a successful real estate business using the principles that obviously she teaches at Girls with Grit. So Jamie, let's go back in time. I know you were born and raised in California. My apologies.
Yep. I'm not there anymore though, so don't hold it against me.
You're a refugee, not a missionary. So you moved from California to North Carolina. What prompted the move? How long did you live in California? Just kind of give us your backstory of how you ended up in North Carolina.
Yeah, so I'll totally share my story. I'll make it short. I'll give you the shorter version. I went to Fresno State, graduated with a degree in interior design, and I went to go work for a custom home builder thinking it was a sales job. It was actually, or a design job. It was actually sales. And I actually liked it. I'm like, wow, I'm actually really good at this. This is fun. So I ended up going to get my license. I went resale, and my first year in real estate, I ended up selling close to 35 houses. Brand new baby agent, which was great. And it was in a down market, right? So this was, back in 2010 or something like that.
Okay, so this is back near Fresno?
Yeah. So I was raised in Hanford. I lived in the Hanford-Lemoore area, which is a suburb of Fresno. That's where I sold real estate. Built my business from the ground up. About 5 years into it, my husband ended up getting licensed and joined me. So I retired him from the corporate world for the first time. And we built our little mini empire. People refer to us as Chip and Joanna Gaines of that small community of Lemoore, California. It was so much fun, y'all.
It's not a bad moniker, right?
No, not at all. I was there for it for sure, because we had a retail design storefront, like a cute little storefront. We sold the Magnolia brand out of our storefront. Yeah. We had a home staging company.
I have to stop you here because you're on a roll, but I need to clarify something here. You sold 35 homes in your first year as an agent. So yeah. I don't want to gloss over that, because there's a lot of agents who might have been in real estate for 7, 8, 9, 10 years, and they've never sold 35 homes in a year. What lead sources or marketing strategies, or what did you do to sell 35 homes in your very first year?
I think part of it was my age demographic. There was a lot of first-time home buyers getting in the market then, because houses were affordable in my market back then. You could get a nice starter home, 3-bed, 2-bath for like $150,000 back then. Oh. That's obviously not the case now. It was just my age demographic being in my early 20s and seeing a lot of people alongside me, getting married and ready to start a family and buy a house and all of that. So I think that was part of it, is just who my sphere was at that time and being ready to dive into the housing market. And then the second piece of it was networking, right? Networking with lots of local lenders and just hustling. I mean, I hate to say hustle culture, but listen, there's some point in your career where you freaking have to. You have to work really, really hard to build a brand. And you don't have the luxury of saying, no, I'm not going to work weekends. No, I'm not going to work evenings. It's just reality. When you get into real estate, you have to be ready to go all in and work a crap ton in order to build a business that you're proud of. So it was a lot of networking.
I've said that on many podcasts and many keynotes I've given at conferences, that marketing doesn't really matter until you get to about 25 to 30 closings a year. Everything up until that is just hustle. Marketing can help you go from 30 to 50 or 30 to 60 or whatever, but everything up to 25, 30 if you can't sell 25, 30 homes a year without Facebook ads or Zillow or whatever, like you need to address that first.
Yeah, that's the thing. I wasn't running any ads at all. I used social media organically back then. That was before anybody was. And so you'd had the older agents in the office older, which is funny because I'm their age now.
These just super old agents that were totally irrelevant. They were like 38 years old and just ancient.
Well, and back then too, Jamie, you were probably noticing that when you did post organically, you were actually reaching new people without paying for it.
So different than it is now. But yes, that was the old Facebook. There was an agent in my office. She was probably in her mid-50s, and she said at a sales meeting, "Are we using the same Facebook? I don't understand how you're getting results and I'm not." And it's just like, bless her. Like, that was sweet.
Yeah, she was on Facebook.net at the time.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, honestly, back then, 2012, 2013, 2014, I was doing marketing consulting for like local small businesses at the time. And I remember one of the things I would do is I would order vinyl stickers to have them put on their front door that said like us on Facebook, because back then how many likes you had actually mattered, because if you had 500 likes or 1,000 likes or whatever, Facebook would actually show your post to more people. And now it is actually completely irrelevant how many likes you have.
Now you have to pay to play, which is fine. Yeah. Honestly, it was like a lot of the just listed, just sold, going on a listing appointment, staging this house, just showing the behind the scenes before that was the thing that everyone was doing. So I was doing that back then. So that's really how I built my business and built a brand. So we had the home staging company too. So we would stage our listings. We would stage for other agents. We had the retail design storefront. And then I had a team at that point. But I had a toddler at my knees and a baby on my hip. And I remember thinking, there is no way that this is what God had for my life, because I was stressed out. I was wearing so many different hats. I was trying to be a mom and trying to be a wife and trying to be a business owner and trying to grow these businesses. And I just was very unhappy with the way things were going in California. And I thought, there is no way I can raise my kids here. So I looked at my husband one day and I said, something has to give. I remember just crying, looking at him. Something has to give. This is not how we're supposed to live our life. There's no way this is what God has for us, because this is not of him at all.
Mm-hmm. And at this time, just to be clear, you're very successful and you're making very good money, right?
Yeah. So from the outside looking in, I was selling over 80, 90 houses a year. I had a very established brand. I had the staging company, the storefront. We had our team. Like, anyone from the outside looking in would go, man, she has it all. But y'all, I was tired. And I was just so tired of trying to build these businesses. And I thought, there's got to be a better way. There's just no way that this is what God has for me. And so through tears and lots of prayer over that week, we decided to shut the shop down. We shut the shop down. And ironically, we had a line all around the block of people wanting to come and shop. I'm like, where were you people like the last 6 months? Anyways. So my husband tells me, just stay home, don't come in, because that was my baby. He's like, I know you're really heartbroken over this dream of having this shop, and it just didn't work out the way we had planned. So after that week, we shut the shop down. The following week, we said, let's really look at, what does our dream life look like? Where do we want to really plant roots? Where do we want to really pour into a community? Where do we want to raise our kids? Where do we see ourselves for the next 20 years? Because at that point, my son was 4 years old. So it was before he was in kindergarten. So we thought long and hard, prayed about it. We always wanted to move to Raleigh. My husband originally went to UNC Wilmington for the first 2 years of college before he went into the Navy. And so the only reason why I met my husband is because he was stationed at Navy base right there in Lemoore, Hanford area where I grew up. And so we met. And he's from the East Coast. He loved the coastal North Carolina area. And I thought, where could we move? And so his sister originally lived in the Raleigh area, and I had visited at one point, and I loved it. I told him, this is before we got married. I told him, if we ever got married and had kids, I'd love to move to Raleigh. So it was back on the table, prayed over it, and said, God, if this is for us, open the door. To make the extremely long story short, that's exactly what we did. So we planned our exit strategy. So this was June of 2018, finally. Planned our exit strategy over 1 year, right? Because you guys know in real estate, you say one word about moving and people freak out and you lose all this business. So we were really quiet about it, planned it, was very strategic about it. And then June of 2019, we relocated to Raleigh, and here I am 5.5 years later. I've never looked back. So then I had to do what I did the first time, but you know what? It was faster this time around because I knew what I needed to do. I knew all the right steps I made, and I knew how to build a brand successfully. So I was like, I've already done it. At that point, I wasn't afraid. I'm like, listen, I'm not a tree. I can pick up and move. And I had to have faith. And there was this sign. I actually have it on my office here, and I look at it every day. And I live by this. It's always do what you're afraid to do. And so, I live faith over fear. And that's just what we decided to do. And it's funny, my husband, looking back now, he looks at me and says, like, you are the most fearless person I have ever met. I'm like, what's there to be afraid of? You fail? Okay. Pick something else up. Try something else, So, but yeah, we moved. And the first 6 months I was here, I did all the things I knew I needed to do to meet the right people, to network, to have coffee meetups, to go to the ribbon cuttings, to drive around and understand my new area. Like, how am I supposed to be an expert in this area if I don't know the school districts, the neighborhoods, like what makes this community tick? So I spent 6 months and like very intently learning everything I needed to know, and what were the quirks of the school district? What are the nice shops and restaurants that people care about here? How do I go meet those people and let them know that I'm new here, that I want to support their business? So honestly, it's the whole basis of 5 Mile Famous that I talk about a lot, and we have a course on it and teach on that. But that's exactly what I did. I got into the trenches and just met people. And I think the other thing that was in my favor, so that was like 2019. Obviously, everyone knows what happened in 2020.
It was June 14th, 2019.
That's right.
Because
I
I remember
did tell you that.
I texted you and I was like, hey, when did you move to North Carolina? Because we just wrote a retargeting ad that mentioned you moving to North Carolina.
Yep.
It's a running on your Facebook page. And you texted back, and it really surprised me. You texted back this specific day, June 14th, 2019. So I was like, okay, clearly this was a very big deal in your life that you remember the literal specific day that you moved from California to North Carolina. So one observation, I guess, that I want to make is that when you move somewhere, if you're new to a community, you don't have any of the social connections that, we talked about that you
I didn't know anyone.
Yeah. In California, you knew people and your family knew people, et cetera.
Yeah.
You will eventually get back there. It'll just take time. If you move somewhere, I would say it'll probably take 5 years if you just let it happen. If you just let it organically happen, it'll eventually take you 5 years, but you're like, hey, how do I compress that learning phase to like 6 months rather than 5 years? Because I don't want to wait 5 years to build up a network and know people and know the school districts and the restaurants. Like, I want this to happen quickly. So if you're listening to this podcast episode right now, and maybe you were born and raised in the market you're in, but your business isn't where you want it to be, what if you adopted the mindset for the next couple months that like, I'm going to act like I'm not from here, and I'm going to go meet with all the small business owners. I'm going to connect with teachers. I'm going to learn what parents think about the various school districts. I'm going to try to become an expert on the local restaurant scene, know all the neighborhoods. Like, I'm going to treat the next, let's say 90 days as if I just moved to this community and I need to become an expert. Because if your business isn't where you want it to be, that might be what's missing, is that you haven't really taken that part seriously.
Yeah, or you take it for granted because you're like, well, like how I was in my old market, because like I knew everyone. I grew up in that community, and my dad was like a pillar in the community and knew everyone. And I took it for granted to some extent, but then I finally took ownership of that, and that's when my brand really blew up in my old market. And I was like, well, I know what to do. So I think that sometimes we take it for granted, and we don't spend the time learning about other people. We don't spend the time learning about their businesses. We don't spend the time figuring out how we can help support them and cross collaborate, because there's a lot of growth that can happen there when you actually have that mindset of like, let me help this small business owner. Like, how can I help them? And what happens is when you pour a lot into other people, you naturally just get like that. We don't give to get, but like when you give and you truly are genuine about it, you're always going to get. It's just the way it works.
Yeah, Jamie, I wanted to, we're doing the weave a little bit right now here, but just parking on kind of 2019 going into 2020. You get asked a lot about, how to build a successful real estate business. You had mentioned when you first had that conversation with your husband, it was through tears. Obviously, you had kids that could be a little bit more mobile, being a little bit
Yep.
younger. When you kind of said this isn't what God has for me, did that come as a surprise to your husband? What did those conversations look like? Was he on the same page, kind of feeling the same vibe? What was that dynamic as you were making it such a, what seemed like
Yeah.
probably a crazy decision?
At the time, I think we were on the same page. And honestly, I'm just going to be honest. I'm so grateful for my husband. We've always been on the same page with everything in our lives, in our marriage, decisions with our children. So at that point, I think we were both feeling that way. I don't want to say spiritual depression, but that's kind of what it felt. And again, I don't want to turn this political, so please, people, don't hear me wrong, but I just knew that I did not want to raise my kids there. There was just so much that just felt heavy, right? And so that's when we were like, man, there's got to be something better. There's just no freaking way. This does not feel like this is from God right now. So that's kind of, once we had those conversations, we were on the same page 100%. There was no surprise there at all, whatsoever. And it was more of like, well, what if we actually went after our dreams? What if we actually built life by design? What if we actually relocated and moved and lived the life that we've always said that we wanted to? What if, what's the worst that can happen? It doesn't work out. Okay, then we can move back. It's not the end of the world. We're not trees. We're not stuck. We can move. So that's kind of what those conversations look like. And it was like, God, if this is what you have for us, your will be done, and we'll figure it out. That's it. But looking back now, people thought we were crazy. They were like, why would you do this? You have everything. Why would you do this? But, this is for your listeners right now. Well, hold on one second. I want this to just be so important, because this is how I live my life, is that if you are feeling that way right now and you're feeling like there's just absolutely no way, you can move and you can rebuild it. Truly. And I think people sometimes feel stuck. They feel like this is all I can do, and they're just unhappy. But what if you actually went after building a business that you're proud of, and what does that look like? And that year could be 2025 for you.
And that's why I asked you, the question, right? Because I think a lot of our listeners right now, complacency kind of breeds, I would say, that spiritual, heaviness. And this goes beyond real estate. Yeah. And to get kind of, you're waxing philosophical and spiritual right now, so I am too. It's like me and my wife right now are in a season where we're experiencing, among our friend group, among family, we've actually had a few suicides this year, right? Where it's like
heavy.
It's heavy, and it is this realization that you feel stuck, right? You feel like a tree, as you mentioned before, and that is never the case. So if it's in our listeners, if it's in your own business, if it's in your own family life, to just have this kind of acute realization that you did, Jamie, once upon a time, that if you're stuck, there's one person who can kind of pull you out of being unstuck, and that's you. You're not beholden to your circumstances. And then you move back in 2019 then, so obviously we're on the cusp of some craziness, as you mentioned before.
Yep.
So just a couple observations I want to make. If you're an American, it is literally genetically in your DNA that you're someone who's willing to move for a better life. Because unless you have Native American descent, your ancestors came here from Europe or somewhere else, right? And so it's literally in your DNA. If your family goes back to California specifically, that means your ancestors were like the most badass of the badasses, because they went on. No, I mean, seriously, it means genetically they got to New England and they're like, nah. And they went across an entire continent on the Oregon Trail to get as far west as California. So you basically are doing a reverse Oregon Trail where you're like,
Yeah.
we're going back east to North Carolina.
That's actually funny you mentioned that, Tim, because my entire family left California and my brother now lives in a suburb outside of Johnson City, Tennessee, in a small little community called Piney Flats.
In eastern
And it's
Tennessee.
where my grandfather was originally from, that he moved from to California, and now my brother's back there. Anyways, that's a story for another day. But, I just want to encourage your listeners right now that sometimes we have to give up good for great. What other people think is our good may not be. Yep. And sometimes we have to give that up to really get to our level of greatness that we
I mean,
can aspire
obviously most of our listeners on this show are realtors. So you guys kind of know what we're talking about here, but it's one thing if you own a successful retail shop, or you're a dentist, or a successful electrician, or you own a retail store, a boutique or something like that, to pack up and move from California to North Carolina, or insert whatever state, right? But being a realtor is a very unique challenge because the entire asset that you've built as a real estate agent is your network. So it's not as simple as like, oh, I ran a successful boutique in California, I'll just launch the same thing in Texas or North Carolina or Ohio or wherever you're moving, right? Like you are giving up the most valuable asset you have, which is the relationships in your database. And you're saying, I'm going to move somewhere and literally start from scratch. So you moved to North Carolina, started from scratch. This is 2019. What type of marketing did you do to build there? Did you pay for any leads, Zillow leads? Were there any marketing program? Was it Facebook ads? Like, what did you do to get going? And what did those first couple of years look like in terms of GCI or homes sold? Or
well, this was before I found platform, but I knew enough to know that I had to do some stuff organically, right? Make connections, show up to the ribbon cuttings, meet people in my community, all that good stuff. Then the other part of it was ads and retargeting ads. So I knew enough to build that out and do that part myself. To the point where it was like, I'd go to the grocery store and people would go, "Oh, you're that realtor lady, aren't you?" Like I remember I was buying like something for dinner one night, and the cashier was looking at me weird. The lady behind me was kind of looking at me weird. And I'm like, do I have something on my face? Like, what the heck? And then finally, that's when the cashier goes, "You're that realtor lady, aren't you?" Because I literally think I just saw like one of your videos or ads. And then the lady behind me goes, "Oh, you just listed, whatever the address was, 1234 Main Street. I literally just saw that video." And it was like, haha, suckers, you're on my retargeting list now.
Awesome.
But that's what I knew what to do, was just to, put a little bit of ad spin behind ads and then retarget them and just continue to do that, rinse and repeat. So, but again, just remember, like, a lot of the other stuff was the business building blocks to get to that next level. Like all of that retargeting for me was like the cherry on top. I was still, doing postcards to my neighborhood. I was, farming the traditional way of farming. I was still doing fun events. I still do fun events in my neighborhood. I do like golf cart parades and the community yard sale and the Monster Mash Dash, those types of things. The Christmas lights contest. So I was already doing those types of things, even though I was brand new.
You just rattled off like 5 specific local community event ideas that we could probably do a whole podcast episode on.
Yeah, we could.
Just those 5 ideas. But so I don't want to, again, gloss over that. She's talking about, hey, I was doing Facebook ads, retargeting ads, just a disclaimer. We don't want to imply directly or indirectly that platform marketing is trying to take any credit for Jamie's career, because obviously she was incredibly successful before she ever hired platform, and she knows enough about Facebook ads to run her own ads. So really her career arc and building this business is just proof that the platform strategy works. Because what you're saying without saying is you were effectively implementing what we call the platform strategy. You just didn't call it that, because you had never heard of us. But you were doing basically all the things that we do for clients. You were just smart enough to do all this for yourself. So you're doing all these community events. You're not over relying on Facebook ads. And that's a point I want to highlight. You weren't over relying on Facebook leads or retargeting ads or buying leads from Zillow. You were actually active in your community, out face-to-face, meeting people, like retail politics, right? And then all the Facebook stuff is just, the sprinkles on top, right? That helped, but you were actually super active in your neighborhood, sending postcards, hosting community events. What did the GCI or the number of homes sold volume, like what did that look like the first couple years? Like, do you remember?
So my first year, brand new market here, I sold like 15 million. And then COVID happened. And yeah, I know, crazy, right? And then it exploded. Y'all are laughing.
I mean, it's like, you're a rock star, you know?
I mean, there's agents that have been in the business 10 years and they will not hit 10 million. They'll be like, what am I doing wrong? And you move to a brand new city where you don't know anyone and sell 15 million.
But I knew what to do.
Like, right. Like, what would you say to someone who's like, I've been in the business a decade and I've never broke 8 or 9 million. How did you sell 15 million in a brand new town? You don't know anyone. Like, what would you say to that? Is it a work ethic problem? Like, what does it come down to if you're being like brutally honest?
It might be. I'm crazy. I did work a lot. But here's the thing. I think a lot of people are paralyzed by their own limitations and they let fear stop them from doing things they need to and doing the things they know they need to move the needle forward. And that could be in life, that can be in business. And I think people are so afraid that they just don't do it. And so it's like, well, I know I need to, let's just say this. I know I need to go and like meet 3 people or 3 business owners today. But I'm so nervous. I don't want to talk to them. So I never do it. And every day you move that to the next day. Oh, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it. And tomorrow never comes. I think the people who are the most successful business people that I know look fear in the face and freaking do it anyway. Like, and that's one of my things I always say is just do the dang thing. Because you guys are limiting yourself. Like, I'm just going to be honest. And it's not really a work ethic problem as much as it is like a fear problem. People are so afraid of rejection. They're so afraid of being told no. They make up like scenarios in their head of like how this is going to play out. And they are so afraid of that happening. I'm like, why? If a business owner says, no, I'm not interested. Okay, great. On to the next one. Like, why are we so afraid? Why is our culture now so afraid of being told no? So afraid of being rejected? Like, rejection is part of sales. And to be a really, really good salesperson, you have to get comfortable with being rejected, period. So I think it's not really a work ethic, maybe a little bit. It's more about the fear of rejection that I see.
Were you spending money on ads or marketing in those first couple of years? Like, I mean, you said you ran some Facebook ads. Like, how big was that budget approximately?
Like $150 a month. I didn't have a ton. I didn't want to blow through my savings, right? Because I knew I was smart enough to know that wasn't going to be the only thing that moved the needle for me. And listen, if we are just trusting on, oh, I'm just going to run the ads and these deals are just going to fall in my lap, that's not how it works. You still have to work. You still have to pick up the phone. You still have to call people. You still have to meet people. Like, running the ads and getting the leads helps because now these are people raising their hand, but you still have to do the work. You still have to do the follow-up. You still have to do all of this, So I was smart enough to know, like, I didn't want to run through my entire budget, my entire savings after just relocating. It was mostly organic and meeting people. Then the pandemic happened. Oh, that year I ended up selling over 25 million. My second year in my market. So, but I think a lot of that, the thing that was on my side at that point, obviously the market, like, deals were falling in our laps at that point. But the other part was I had just relocated. And so North Carolina, especially the Raleigh area where I live, is a huge relocation melting pot right now. For the last 5 years it has been. So that was on my side because I could relate to people like, oh, hey, I just went through this myself. Like, let me, here's a guide for that and this. And like, I know the area, and like, it was easy for them to trust me. That trust factor was easily built because I had just went through that. So I understood them, right? And I think understanding your consumer in sales is another key component to building a big business.
So you said you were only spending like a couple $100 a month at most on Facebook ads, and you sold $15 million in your first year in North Carolina. Yeah. So again, like, I don't want to gloss over that because I think when a lot of people hear that, oh, such and such agent sold 12 million or 15 million or 23 million or whatever it is, what they hear in their brain is like, oh, I bet they have a massive ads budget. They must be, spending, like they must be spending $5,000 a month on Zillow leads or whatever. And it's like, no, you just need to be super active in your neighborhood, in your community, get to know the local business owners, the parents of the sports teams, be active in your church. If you're a person who goes to church, like, be actually active in your community. And then, yeah, you can sprinkle some paid ad strategies like platform on
Right.
top of that. But in terms of how I think platform should fit into a successful agent's business, platform is like the protein shake after your workout. It will do absolutely nothing for you if you don't actually work out, right? I
That's
mean, I
true.
guess it's maybe better than nothing to have higher protein in your day, but like if you're not actually working out, like a protein shake basically does nothing, right? Platform is the protein shake. If you are active in your community, you're doing the community events, right? You're doing pop buys, you're doing client appreciation events, you're getting to know the local small business
Right.
owners, everything Jamie's talking about and everything they teach at Girls with Grit. If you're doing all these things, then yeah, if you start, adding something like platform on top of that, I think it's like adding fuel to the fire in the same way that like protein shakes make your workout more effective because your muscles will grow back faster with, more protein synthesis happening. But if you're just downing creatine and protein and never actually hitting the gym, you're just going to get bloated.
Yeah. Also, can I just say I love that you're using this analogy right now. You must be seeing all my gym selfies over the last 6 months.
Well, I mean, it's so true. I actually made a post in the PlatFam Facebook group like last week about creatine, using that as an analogy. It's like, yeah,
Should
if you
blood
lift
in.
weights,
Yeah.
taking creatine is awesome because you'll usually be able to get 10 to 20% more reps every set. But if you just take creatine and you're not actually lifting, you're just going to gain water weight. Like that's,
Yeah.
you have to actually do the work. And I think we even have some platform realtors that might be listening to this podcast that signed up, I don't know, 3 months ago, 6 months ago, 10 months ago, whatever. And they're just kind of doing the basic copy and paste template ads, like the very bare minimum. They're not getting their account manager custom content. They're skipping the
Yeah.
calls. So their account manager can't actually write creative ads about what's going on in your life right now. Cause like, that's why we have weekly calls with the account managers so that we can come up with custom stuff for you. And we have people doing the bare minimum, not really sending in content. And then they do platform for 4 months or whatever. And they're like,
And then quit.
yeah, they're like, this isn't working. I saw that Kara Newton is selling 100 homes this year and I didn't get any results in 4 months or 6 months. It's like, well, how many ads have you done? Oh, I skip half my calls with my account manager. It's like, well, you'll get out of it what you put into
Or
it.
they don't follow up with the leads, or they're like, these leads are trash. Like, no, you just don't know how to follow up. You can't just text and call or email somebody once and expect like you're gonna put a deal together. Like, listen, work works. Like, but you gotta work.
I think one important point to hit on too, just for our listening audience here, is that when you're talking about these community events and or
Mhm.
social media spend, it's not an and or thing, right? A
Right.
lot of the realtors that I onboard for platform are talking about, I'm so glad I found you guys because I don't know what to post about. But when you're doing ribbon cutting ceremonies or when you're doing,
Yeah.
the light contest, this can actually feed some of your content strategy and almost be a force multiplier, right? To say, I'm in the community, and then you put a couple bucks behind the fact that you're in the community, and this is how you get recognized at the grocery store. It's that
Yep.
combo of real life and then also fully investing in an ad or content strategy, online.
We have some of these fun, more template ads, like the vanilla ice cream cone ad or the
Oh,
political
I did that
yard
one.
sign ad. Yeah, I mean,
I did
we
that
we
one too.
have yeah, like we have these series of ads where it's like, I know if a client does such and such ad, we know it's going to work because that's just a really effective ad. But like that can't be your entire marketing strategy, just doing the more copy and paste template ads. You have to actually be active in your community. You mentioned follow up, Jamie. I want to double click on that because I think a lot of agents, when we say the word follow up, like even that phrase conjures fear in people when they hear it because they think, oh my God, I need to sit down and call strangers for 2 hours. And like, I actually have a very different perspective on that. And I'm
Same.
wondering what you think of this. When I say do follow up for, let's say, 2 hours every day from 8 a.m. to 10 or from 9 to 11 or whatever, like 2 hours every day doing follow up, some of that might be leads that came in that you don't actually know who they are. But a lot of it should just be you calling people that are in your database that you already know and just checking in. Like have 2
Yep.
hours a day worth of conversations with people and see what happens to your business in the next couple months.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time, even in my coaching program, and we talk about doing the daily high fives. Right now, it's more like daily high tens. You got to reach out to 10 people a day. That's what it looks like. That's a back and forth conversation. So if you reach out to 10 people and you don't hear anything from any of them, like you got to keep going. You got to have 10 conversations a day.
Okay.
And again,
Okay.
like for me, like when I say follow up, you know, that is sending them a text, that's an email, that's a phone call, but also like put them into content in your email subscriber list, like that pertains to however they came into the top of your funnel. So if they responded to something that had to do with, like, let's go back to the holiday lights contest, right? Like, let's say they responded to that. What does that tell you? That tells you that they wanted to participate in that. The likelihood is they're in my neighborhood because that was an event for my neighborhood only. The likelihood is they likely have children, right? So I know all these things about the consumer. So guess what? I'm just going to continue to send them emails of value, not like, hey, look at this house in 12 Oaks that I want to sell you. I'm sending them something of like, here's the top 10 places to see Santa this holiday season, right? So it's like following up in that way. And I think people think follow up just means pounding the phones. And that's fine if that's you. That's great. But a lot of us aren't like that. A lot of us don't like doing that. So it's just curating and creating content and staying in front of them. And it's postcards, it's newsletters, it's social media posts, it's different content on your email list. That's what I'm talking about. Inviting them to events. So that's how I run it. And that's, again, part of our 5 Mile Famous strategy that I talk about. And then the ad spin, again, same thing. That's just the cherry on top that's going to recirculate, retarget these people. So I think it's so much more. Follow-up isn't just phone calls. Follow-up isn't just a text message. Can it be? Yes, it is. Is that? Yes. But it's all of these other things that people don't realize. We've got to bring these people down the funnel. And sometimes they're not ready to buy a house right away. But if you stay in front of them, continue to provide info of value, continue to show that you're a community member, that you're there for them, when they are ready, there's no other choice but you.
Well, when you make those follow-up phone calls, I think what you say is so important. And by the way, this is good news. So I'm not about to drop a genius sales script for people, right? Like I'm not saying use this script to overcome objections and set appointments, right? But what you say actually determines your willingness to make the calls in the first place. So you've talked a lot about fear on this podcast episode. I think that's a major theme, is like overcoming fear. And guess what? If you can't overcome your fear, that's fine. Do it scared, right? Like no one has ever said to do something you have to overcome your fear. Like usually you just end up doing it scared, right? But a way easier way to go about your life, rather than having to psych yourself up every morning to make phone calls to people and be like, oh, I'm going to try to set an appointment. I'm going to ask them, are you thinking about buying or selling this year? You know, like rather than trying to set an appointment, what if you reframed why you're making the phone calls to, oh, I'm going to do enough community events every year that whenever I call people, I'm never actually asking them, hey, are you thinking about buying a house? You know, all I'm going to do is I'm going to call and invite them to my next event.
Exactly.
Because it does not require you to psych yourself up to make those phone calls. If you're like, hey, I sponsored a bowling alley night for families next Thursday. I've rented out the whole bowling alley. You can bring your kids and bowl for free. And there's a $5 whatever ticket for concessions. I just wanted to invite you. Like, would you want to come bring your, husband, wife, kids? And if they say no, cool. Like you don't have to psych yourself up for that because you're offering them something cool. Or
exactly. If they say no, like, okay, well, I'll call you, invite you to the next one. Great. Have a great day. Like whatever.
They won't be mad at you because you invited them to something for free. That's a value add to their life. Or if you sponsor a movie theater night, or you do a pumpkin patch day or Easter bunny thing. Well, there's so many kind of like stereotypical realtor events that you do for client appreciation events. Do enough shit in real life that you can invite people to, that you never have to actually call your leads and talk about real estate, because the only reason you're calling them is just to invite them to whatever your next event is. And you'll never have to worry about doing follow-up again, because when they're ready to buy or sell, they'll just contact you. So I think the root problem of this, I guess the point I'm getting at here in this epic rant, is the root problem is that most realtors aren't doing enough real life events to invite people to. So when they call, the only, like when they hear someone like Tim or Jamie or Max say, hey, you got to follow up with your leads every day, what they hear is, oh, I got to call everyone in my database and try to set up, and try exactly, and try to set appointments with them. It's like, no, you should be calling them and just inviting them to whatever your next event is.
That's how I run my strategy. Now, not everyone's like that, and I get it, but man, it works.
But I mean, I know so many people that have built a business like yours doing exactly that.
Yeah, exactly. Just be a nice human being to people. Period. People love that. And the kicker is, okay, great. Now I've got their information. The more stuff that they come to, the more information I get about them. I know that they have dogs. I know that they have kids. I finally have their address because I did that holiday lights contest that they signed up for. They gave me their address. Guess what? In 6 months, now I'm going to stop by unsolicited with a branded home equity report box and let them know how much equity they have in their home. And I'm going to create a nice printed professional flyer inside that box with that home equity report that says, here's the top 5 ways you can use your equity today. And it has nothing to do with selling your house. Why aren't people doing this?
Yeah.
Like, literally, like, this is what I teach and train and coach on. It's not that hard.
Like, what if you became the best known local family events coordinator and you just happen to also be licensed as a real estate agent, right? That's how you should think about that's how you should think about these things, because every other agent is just, hiring an ISA, buying a shit ton of Zillow leads,
Yep.
Smiling
that
and
sounds
dialing.
awful, by the way.
Right. Absolutely. And by the way, I'm not denying that works. There are many people that have made a crap ton of money doing exactly that. It works, but I just don't want to run my business that way. I mean, like,
I didn't either.
Look at Platform. We do our annual mastermind. We'll spend $150,000 losing money on it again this year because we don't charge admission. We don't have sponsors. There's literally zero revenue derived from the event. We sponsor a rodeo every summer in the middle of nowhere in South Dakota, just so we have a reason to call and invite our clients to something going on in the summer, because we want to do 2 events a year. We think of that as our kind of internal client appreciation event, where it's like, hey, come and hang out with us in the summer. There's not speakers, there's not sessions. It's literally just a long weekend camping trip to hang out with people and watch, a pro rodeo. Like, it has nothing to do with marketing, nothing to do with real estate, but it gives us an excuse for me to call you and be like, hey, Jamie, do you want to bring the family up and hang out and watch a rodeo and go see Mount Rushmore afterwards? So like the same thing works across businesses, right?
Yeah, it sure does.
Like, do interesting stuff in real life, and your marketing will therefore be more interesting.
Jamie, I'm curious, because it's a mentality thing, right? You coach on this now, you coach on these strategies for outreach to leads. How did you kind of learn this stuff? Was it you just beating your head against the wall? Did you have a mentor? Who kind of gave you the roadmap that you give other people now, if anyone did?
You know what? I was actually way too stubborn, maybe stupid, to hire a coach to learn these strategies. I figured this shit out on my own.
Okay.
I really did. Just from a lot of trial and error. I've been in real estate now about 15 years, and it's just from trial and error and figuring out what works, how to build a brand. That's it. And so now I get to turn around and share that with people and give them the shortcut, give them the blueprint. What took me, successfully 10 years to do, it should take them less than 2 if they do it and if they go all in. So I love that question though. Like, again, sometimes we got to pay for the shortcut. That's what it is, really.
Yeah, and that's why I asked the question too, because obviously you have drive. You talked about, how, hey, for the first few years in both markets, it was just kind of work,
Yeah.
But I think your point is well taken, where it's like that mentorship, having somebody come alongside of you is a shortcut, and it's an effective one. And I think it's fascinating that you fell into these things after just ramming your head against the wall a few times.
Yep, exactly. But I'm smart enough now to know between me and my business partners how to grow our business, and that's hiring people that have done what we want to do. And I think that's another takeaway for your listeners. If you're in that situation, you just got to hire the pros. You got to figure it out by allowing them to show you how to do it. And that's your shortcut to success. It doesn't have to take you, 500 wrong turns and no's to finally figure it out. Like, you can do it a lot faster if you have the right mentorship and coaches and people in your corner. It can go a lot faster.
You've been with Platform now, like an actual client, for coming up on 6 months, something
Yeah,
like that.
about 6 months. Yeah.
What would you say have been the most engaging, successful ads that we've run with you, like in your local market, right, in Holly Springs? Like, what have been the
Honestly,
best ones?
I don't know if you want me to say this or not, but the ones that have been the best performing are ones that were more in line and more like what I talk and preach about. So there was that one that you guys ran. It was about should I do a 529 or should I invest in real estate for my kids? And that one freaking went viral like gangbusters. I think at this point there's over 2 million views on that post, and it's still
Jeez.
going.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but that one wasn't something that like you had every single platform person running. Maybe you had a couple
right.
run that ad, right? So I think the ones that were more in line with like what I talk about that are, content that I already talk about are the ones that performed better. And I think that's true for most of your platform people. And that's why you said it's so important to meet with your ad manager so that they're running content that's in line with like who you are and what you're talking about and what's important to you, and run those ads. Obviously you guys have some that run well for everyone, but in my opinion, the ones that have done best for me are ones that are, again, more in line with the content that I'm already talking about.
Well, here's the catch-22, right? Is that if we have an ad like the vanilla ice cream cone ad I always talk about, like if we have an ad that works for basically everyone, almost by definition, if it works for everyone, that ad's not very personal to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to do the really, really personal ones. Like I know the ad that actually we just launched last week for you has a really high click rate where it's like
that one was good, but
restaurants.
That one was good. The favorite restaurants. The other one, Tim, that we just ran was you took that photo of me at the gym and talked about like, this is what it really looks like to be an American and like all of this stuff. That one's doing really well too.
Oh yeah,
like the core principles.
Yeah, it was basically a list of like 20 things that like bougie yuppie people do that like if you don't do this, don't worry. It's like, hey, if you don't have brand new Christmas decorations every year, who cares? If you don't vacation internationally every year, who cares? If you don't send your kids to private school or, have a private jet, who cares, right? Like
I was like, Tim, this is really good, but like I take my kids go to private school, like I go on nice trips and vacations, but I was like, you know what? I don't feel bad because I don't talk down on people. I know where I came from, and I grew up like a poor middle class family. I've worked really hard to get to where I'm at right now, and I don't look down on people because they have not. Like that's not what it's about. And he's like, that's exactly the point, Jamie. Like I'm like, all right, let's run this.
Meanwhile, Jamie's trying to hide her private jet in the hangar as she's doing that ad.
Y'all.
You know what's funny is that like half of people listening to this will actually believe, oh damn, Jamie has a private jet.
I'm going to show you my Girls Are Great vision board, and there is a pink private jet on there. We don't have it, but I would be lying if I said it wasn't like one of our dreams.
just like hot pink. I mean, honestly, I know people who buy private jets, and like with Section 179 of depreciation, like if you're making good money, a lot of people are buying jets now just for the depreciation, because you can obviously finance
and they try to
it over
out when you're not using it.
Exactly. It's basically like buying an Airbnb, but add a couple zeros to the price tag. The strategy works the same way. But
would it be like Grant Cardone?
When you get it, Jamie, Tim and I want to take a ride in coach at least when you get the pink jet. We call dibs.
It's going to be pink, so
we call dibs.
So, okay, how did you first hear about platform? Because I think we were Facebook friends for maybe a while, but we didn't actually know we didn't know each other at all.
We were trying to think about that, and I honestly don't even know. Like Tim and I were somehow friends on Facebook, and then I was like, "What's this platform thing?" And then we had a lot of similar clients that were both in my program and doing platform, and I thought, "What is this platform thing?" And then I made a post saying that we were looking for a couple of last key sponsorships for our big event. And then that's when Tim and I further connected. This was probably February of last year, Tim, of 2024, more or less.
Something
maybe
like that.
March.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And then I really was like, oh, so that's what y'all do. And I'm like, man, I've been doing this all on my own. I probably should just leverage this out to y'all so I don't have to mess with it anymore. Because again, going back to what we said earlier in the conversation, I knew how to do all this stuff. I knew how to put ads together. I knew how to do retargeting. But man, just to take that off my plate and not have the brain space for that has been awesome.
Yeah, and I know we had a great experience sponsoring the Girls with Grit event. And,
Yeah, you did.
We've sponsored many events before, so I want to give some kind of like context here. What made the Girls with Grit event different is that everyone there is like very ambitious and wants to grow their business. Like it's not just a random regional convention of agents that are coming to hang out and network. It's like if you're in that room, you want to grow your business. So it was cool having that many people kind of like physically, proximately in one place that are very ambitious. Like, hey, I'm not okay with 10% or 20% growth. I want to double my business over the next year.
Right.
You know,
Max, I don't think you went. Max wasn't there. He didn't get
I wasn't there, but I heard so many good things. And I will just tell you, behind the curtain, right, at Platform, we were at the tail end of a CRM transition, and then the Girls with Grit conference happened. And I'll just tell you, it was like probably the 3 craziest months of my professional career after, Tim gave his talk at the Girls with Grit conference. But I've made it a goal to go, if not next year, the year after that. So it was crazy.
All good problems, Max. These are all good problems to have.
As you know, yes.
And I've said this before, but I'll say it again just in case there's some people who are listening to this episode, and they haven't heard other ones where, me and Jamie talk, is that I really respect the way that Jamie and Lauren and Tara do business. Like you guys operate with integrity, and we try to do that too at Platform, where like we say what we mean and we mean what we say. We have rules and we enforce those rules. Just as an example, about like one client per market, right? Yes. You guys have this rule that, hey, we have this private Facebook group. It's for ladies only.
You're not telling them this.
Yeah. And you're like, okay, Tim, Platform can sponsor our event. And somehow I think someone accidentally sent me an invite to join the Girls with Grit Facebook group. And so just as like a reflex, I was like, okay, sure, I'll join the group. And I didn't even think of it because I get invited to join groups all the time. Right. And then I like it, the random post started popping up in my feed after a day. And I think I sent you a screenshot.
I was like,
saying,
what?
Yeah, I was like, oh, cool. Can't wait to sponsor your event. And I sent you a screenshot that I was in the group. And you're like, what? You can't be in the group. There's, it's for women only. And I thought you were like,
that's why I thought Tim created his burner account, Tabitha Shermack, but that was for a different reason.
That's it.
That was for a different reason.
And you're like, we're going to have to kick you out. And I was like, okay, we just wired you a fairly substantial check to like sponsor the event. And I thought you were joking at first. Like, we're gonna have to kick you out. And you're like, no. We're gonna have to kick you out because we do not allow dudes in that group.
No dudes.
And then we did a call together. You were on one of our Monday motivation calls, streaming live into our group.
Yep.
Who was it? One of your girls tried to join our group.
It was Diana, because our main salesperson that, like, if you want to sign up for Platform, you talk to Diana, right?
Yeah.
She just like, hey, I need to join this group so that I can answer questions if people have questions about Platform. And so I told her to, all right, we'll just ask to join the group. And you kicked her out too, because you're like, hey, you're not a licensed agent. We don't allow people in here that are not licensed agents.
That's our only rule. Must be
right. And it's like, she like came back to me, and she's like, Tim, what do I do? Like, Jamie won't let me join the group. And I was just like, oh, it doesn't matter. It's not that big of a deal. But like, I gained so much more respect for you in that moment, because we have not come across many individuals or companies in the last 10 years we've been doing Platform that I feel have the level of integrity that we try to do business with, where it's like, hey, we have this rule, one client per market, and we mean it. Like, we turn down 80% of people who try to sign up for Platform because they're in a taken market. It costs us a ridiculous amount of money to have that policy every year, but I think that's central to what we do. And you have that same level of like integrity to your rules. It's like, hey, no, I don't care if you're our sponsor for the event. I'm not going to let I'm not going to let your salesperson join our Facebook group and then have all the ladies in the Facebook group think that they're just farming to make sales. It's like, I respected you not that I didn't respect you before, but I respected you way more after that, because I realized like, wow, they they're like
Like, they're
serious about
serious.
these rules. Yeah. And they have like integrity around these rules and like protecting the group.
That's part of also why our group, so our group is one of the larger groups for women in real estate online. We've got about 21,000. There's others that have more, but that's because they let lenders in. They let you in if you're not licensed yet. They let you in if you're like, you know, have some type of business that caters to real estate agents. And they just let anyone and everyone into their group. But I think that's what makes ours so special, is that we live by integrity and we keep it to what we say, and that's it. So, I mean, could it grow and be like 100,000 person group? Yeah, if we just didn't live by integrity and just let anyone and everyone in, then great. Yeah, we can say
Yep.
that our group is 100,000, but that's not how we live. So, anyway, side note, tangent.
It's the same thing at Platform. We have about 300 clients right now, and I think we can maybe grow, I don't know, an extra 10%, 15%, but I think we're kind of honestly very near the limit as a company right now of where our natural business model will allow us to be. And I'm never going to go back on this rule of one client per market. So we just kind of know like, okay, Platform is like very near the upper growth limit. And now it just becomes like, how do we have the best retention rate of any marketing agency that's ever existed? Because we can't grow. So like the only way we're ever going to become more profitable is like having a near perfect retention rate rather than like top line revenue growth. Yeah. So it's a very different way of thinking about how to do business. But I think that's why we're so aligned, because we kind of see the world. We see the world the same way.
Yeah.
What other events or masterminds or coaching groups do you go to, Jamie? That's actually another question I wanted to ask, is you're always looking to invest in yourself. Like, are there other coaches or programs that you have invested in?
Yeah, I have multiple different coaches. We have a real estate coach, we have a business coach, coaches. And again, right, because at this point, I'm not just a real estate agent. I still sell real estate. And you guys are going to laugh. I do this part-time now, and I'll probably sell 12 million this year part-time, like 10 hours a week. But so a lot of my time is spent building my program, right, with my business partners. So a lot of what we pay into for coaches now is about building businesses and whatnot. We go to masterminds. Like, we went to a mastermind in the Bahamas with like other top 1% business owners that have like multi 7-figure businesses, just learning from them and getting in those rooms. So I think my trajectory is a little bit different now, like, honestly. So those are the types of things I like to go to. Do I still go to real estate conferences? Yes. Like, I'll be at y'all's event. I'm excited about that. Bringing the family too, so that'll be fun. I go to my real estate company's event every year. So that's a big, huge one. We just had it in Miami. So yeah, I mean, I'm still attending things. We did Funnel Hackers a couple years ago. That was a really great one, and that was just a lot about different entrepreneurs and business owners. That's what really sets my soul on fire now, is just learning from other entrepreneurs. I'll tell you, truthfully, a lot of things that I've learned in business over the last 3 years are not from other mega real estate agents at all. It's from other entrepreneurs.
Yeah. It's good.
That is really what we try to do at the Platform Mastermind too, is a minority of the speakers are real estate agents. Because we know that every other event you go to, you often see the same speakers over and over again, and they're talking about the same things, which is fine. But we want our event to be different, where a lot of the speakers are actually not in real estate. They're not real estate agents, but they have a really interesting perspective on marketing or business development or some sort of, entrepreneurship that you might not otherwise hear at a conference in the real estate industry.
Right.
So also, again, I don't want to gloss over this. I'm not going to fake like I didn't hear you say you'll sell 12 million this year working 10 hours a week. Like, what do you say to an agent who's like, I'm working so hard, I've tried everything, and I'm, selling 8 million this year, and they claim that they're trying so hard? Like, how do you get to the point where you're working truly part-time and still moving $12 million of homes a year?
I think part of it is sometimes we think we're doing the work, but we're just doing the little bullshit stuff that doesn't matter. We're doing stuff that's like a time suck. We're not focusing on actual needle moving activities, right? So like, trying to think of a tangible thing. Like maybe they decide that they want to figure out how to run their own Facebook ads instead of hiring an expert to run it for them. They're spending so much time and brain power and hours for like 2 to 3 weeks figuring out, trying to set up a Facebook ad when they just lost 100 hours of work by trying to figure it out instead of hiring that out to someone who's going to do it much better and is a specialist in Facebook ads, right? Like you guys. So I think that a lot of times that's what real estate agents do. They think that if they can figure out every little aspect of how to grow a business and do it themselves, they're saving money. No, you're burning time and you're not focusing on the activities that are the things that are going to be the lead gen money making activities in your business. You're focusing on the wrong stuff and you think you're doing the work and it's the wrong work. Does that make sense?
Totally. I was just going to say that's not unique to real estate agents too. As right. I think any entrepreneurial venture, it's like you get bogged down in the minutia because it does keep you busy and you feel like you're accomplishing some things. And then by the end of the year, you haven't grown at all. I think that's a trap that a lot of business owners get into.
Yeah. Even doing these podcast episodes for me, I kind of enjoy them. So I have to realize like this is actually one of the highest leverage things I can do is spend an hour of my time recording the podcast episode. Then we send it to our team. They do all the editing, they edit it, they launch it. But I really only have to invest the hour of my time. And if the episode gets 5,000 listens or the clips that we'll cut up and distribute with retargeting ads might get tens of thousands of listens, I don't have time to individually reach out to tens of thousands of people. No. Right. But if I can spend 1 hour and this 1 hour reaches tens of thousands of people, that's a really, really effective use of my time in running a marketing agency. Even with what we teach our agents with doing, we call them small business spotlights, where once a month we want you to go to like a local small business, take a picture or a video of why you love the croissants at such and such bakery, or why you love the pizza or the steaks at such and such, restaurant. Write a little essay, work with your account manager to come up with that essay. Just give us some ideas and we will write it for you. Right. And then we hopefully are launching 12 of those ads every year. So there's 12 new retargeting ads highlighting 12 different small businesses in your community. But a lot of our agents are missing the most important part. And I think after hearing you talk about this, Jamie, I'm realizing it's just because they're scared. It actually is fear. Is when I came up with that strategy of one small business highlight ad per month, it was that this is just an excuse to meet the small business owner and actually talk with them.
They're scared though.
So that by the end of the year, we have 12 retargeting ads where you highlighted 12 businesses. But the real reason you do it, like the real reason, is that you should have 12 relationships by the end of the year with 12 different small business owners. And doing the retargeting ad was just the excuse to meet the small business owner, because you cannot look me in the eye and tell me that if you did platform for 12 months and actually met with 12 local small business owners and built a friendship with them and then called a couple months later to check back, you actually built relationships with 12 people, that you would not be getting a return with platform. But instead, a lot of what agents do is they swing in, they take a quick like selfie with with a slice of pizza, and then they leave and they don't talk to anyone. They don't tell anyone. They send the picture of their account manager.
Exactly.
And then they're like, I'm not really getting referrals. I'm not becoming known in my community. And it's like, well, you're not doing the most important part. You're not actually getting to know the small business owners. So it's actually fascinating to me because we didn't plan this interview out, right? I didn't send you questions ahead of time.
Nope.
I didn't give you an outline, right? And what you said, so I had no idea what you were going to say, right? But what you said of how you built your business, both in California as well as North Carolina, you were essentially implementing the platform strategy. You just weren't calling it that, right? You were.
I call it my 5 mile famous strategy.
Yes,
it's the same thing.
Exactly. You were just smart enough to realize all this stuff on your own, but that's just what we call the platform strategy. So you built your business essentially using the ideas that we're trying to get agents to do. You just weren't working with platform at the time, and you were doing it all by yourself. So you really are a success story and kind of a case study that these platform ideas work, even though you weren't working with platform at the time.
That's funny.
You did it all by yourself.
Which means we take credit for all of it, JB. Just letting you know.
She almost just spit her coffee all over the computer.
I almost spit my coffee out there, Max.
I mean, like, how many examples, right, do people have to see of, hey, just do these things and you'll be successful? And yet people still don't do it. They're like, well, I just want warm leads to call me.
Yeah.
You know, I want to run
You know
some
what I say
ads and
to
I want them
that?
to call me.
I guess we all can't be millionaires. Like, I just don't know what else to tell people. Like, you're complaining that you can't pay your bills. You're complaining that your back's up against a wall. You're complaining that you only sold 3 million. You know what I'm going to say? Show me your calendar. What have you been doing? Like, let me see what you've been doing with your time. You tell me that you're working so hard, but what are you actually doing with your time? And half the time it's like, oh, they were shopping at freaking Home Goods. They went out to lunch with their best friend for 3 hours. You know, it's
Yeah.
I'm just like, people, we gotta take control of our lives here, and the only way we can do that is through self accountability. Self accountability is the highest form of love, and if you guys you want it that bad, you can have it. You just got to do it. That's it.
You know, obviously everything you guys teach in the Girls with Grit program works. It transcends what market you're in, because you are now in North Carolina, but you were in rural California. Lauren, I believe, is also in North Carolina, but she used to be in Florida.
Yeah.
Tara is in, you know, Denver. You're all in different areas, markets of the country, and you have coaching clients that are all spread out in different cities and states across
All
the
50
country.
states.
Yeah, that are having success with your system. So it's not like, oh, this works in this type of market, but not that one. It's the principles work. But if you're trying to just pick which ones you want to do, like which ones are most convenient to you, but you don't want to do everything necessary, you're not going to get results. It's like guys who go to the gym and all they've ever done for the last 8 years is bench press. It's like, well, yeah, you're going to
We got
develop
chicken
some
legs.
really, yeah, exactly.
That
You're
chest is going to be huge, though. You know,
right. And you're gonna look like this, and you're gonna have really rolled forward shoulders and not be healthy. And you're like, why isn't it working? I go to the gym several times a week, right?
You're doing the wrong thing.
Like, you can't pick and choose which things you feel like doing.
Yep, you got to get your reps in on everything.
Yeah, it's like, who doesn't like getting warm phone calls where the person's like, oh, I've been seeing your ads online, I want to list my house. Like, yeah, that's great, right? But like, that's not how all of your business is going to be, right? Like,
No.
you need to stay in touch with your sphere, your leads, do community events, client appreciation events. I mean, how many times do we have to hear this from speakers and thought leaders and coaching programs like Girls with Grit, to where, like, we still have many clients, frankly, that aren't doing client appreciation events or community events.
I can't help you.
Yeah.
I can give you the layout, the blueprint. I can even give you the templates for the artwork for the event, but I can't do it for you. They got to do it. They got to do it.
It's even more essential that agents just do the work in a current economy like we're in. Because, I mean, let's be honest, in 2020, 2021, you could do the bare minimum and you were still getting great results. Like, there were a lot of agents who made very good money in 2020 and 2021 just because the market was so hot. But you know what? In 2023, 2024, and 2025, that doesn't work. Like, you have to actually do the work.
This is an actual real estate market right now, what we're in. This is what it's like to actually sell real estate. So
I love that perspective. I love that. I love that you just said that, Jamie, because so often we hear about it's the worst real estate market in 40 years. You know, I was having so much success in 20 and 2021, and it's fallen off a cliff. But for you to say this is what it actually looks like, I think that's a good reset of expectations going forward. If you get another 2020 or 2021, that's gravy. You know, that's the cherry on top.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good perspective to have. This is the actual market. And I'm sure you tell your clients that all the time too.
Oh, all the time. I sound like I'm that annoying agent. I've been doing this for 15 years. Okay, but all jokes aside, I have. But, you know, not to talk down to anybody, but I've just been through a few different cyclical markets now, and so this is what it's like to actually sell real estate.
Yeah, if you got in 2010, you've kind of seen the full roller coaster at this point. You would think, unless America collapses completely, which
no,
maybe it could. I don't know.
What we've seen actually in the last couple of years is, from the perspective of transaction volume, it's actually worse than 2008 was. because
Yeah,
people
it
forget that
is.
even in 2008, homes were still affordable, interest rates were still reasonably low. So yeah, like a lot of people lost their jobs and the economy was obviously terrible. But in terms of being a real estate agent, people were still buying and selling houses because homes were still affordable. Now
Yeah.
it's actually arguably worse than that was. But like, how many examples do we have to share of here's what you need to do to be successful? And then people still don't do it. So I don't want to sound too negative on this particular podcast episode. Like I'm like, hey, if you're not successful, you must be an idiot and you should just kill yourself, right? But like there are lots of positive case studies and examples out there, both in, the Girls with Grit coaching program, as well as we have many platform
Yeah.
marketing clients. And there's other programs out there that are great too, right? Of like, just do this and you will be successful. And most people just aren't willing to follow the recipe exactly, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And going back to what you said, this is, in terms of units sold across the country, this is the worst year that we've had since I think 1993. But at the same time, you guys, I am seeing people killing it right now that have still doubled
Absolutely.
their business where the rest of the market's down over 40-45%. So don't tell me that it can't be done, because I'm seeing it every day.
That was the point I was just about to
Yeah.
bring up, is that, yeah, there's some people that are struggling this year, no doubt. I don't want to gloss over that or pretend it's not happening, but at platform, at least, I don't know everything about every other program out there, but I can speak for platform. We have many, many clients that are having their best year ever in 2024.
I just had a conversation with a client last week where this will be his best year ever.
That's awesome.
And so if you follow the recipe, right, and you don't try to wing it and, I don't feel like doing that, I'm only going to do the stuff that I like. It's like, well, if you're baking chocolate chip cookies and you're like, I don't want to use eggs, or I don't want to use butter, or I don't want to use sugar, or I don't want to use this or that, or I don't want to put chocolate chips in there. It's like, well, guess what? You're still baking something, but it's no longer chocolate chip cookies. You're not following the recipe, right? So don't act shocked when you pull it out of the oven and it's not like what it looked like in the picture. You actually have to follow the recipe. Like there are certain things you can't just be like, I don't really feel like using that today. I don't feel like doing that. Like you have to follow the recipe. Jamie, I'm
Yeah.
sure you can probably rattle off a dozen coaching clients or more, right, that are in Girls with Grit that are having their best year ever. I can do the
Yep.
same thing with platform of people that are having not just a good year, but their literal best year
Yes.
ever in 2024 when the market just took a dump over the last couple years.
Yep. Sure can.
Like it is a tough market, right? But if other agents that are maybe even in your market, you might be listening to this and like, one of the agents that we're talking about is literally in your market. If other agents are having their best year ever, you can't use the market as an excuse, because clearly it's what you are doing on a day-to-day basis that's impacting your results. So I know we've gone a little bit over time here. So Jamie, thank you for being flexible.
Thank you, Jamie.
with your time here, but we will see you in actually literally just a couple days at the Platform
Couple
Mastermind.
days.
I know you're probably on your way to Florida right now, so I'm looking forward to that talk with the other Girls with Grit, Tara and Lauren, and just leave you guys with kind of that final maxim of truth that work works. If you're not getting the results that you want, just look yourself in the mirror and be like, am I actually following the recipe and doing the work, even the stuff I don't really feel like doing? Am I doing what my account manager tells me or what my coach tells me to do, or am I just doing the stuff that feels easy? Because if you're not getting the results, you're probably only doing the stuff that you feel like doing. And no successful person has ever become successful only by doing what they feel like doing.
I literally made a post just like that the other day, Tim. I don't know if you saw it, but it was like, how often are you doing something that you don't want to do, but you know you need to do? And it was this whole post, but literally everything you just said summed up exactly that. Like, we need to do what we know we need to do, especially when we don't want to do it. And the top 1% in any industry are those people that have the mindset of doing something when all motivation's out the window. So look at those people that are killing it and ask yourself, do I have the commitment and discipline that they do to do the hard work even when I don't want to?
Great reminder.
Mic drop. All right, Jamie, we'll see you actually not next week, but this week at the Platform Mastermind. Guys, we'll see you on the next episode of the Platform Marketing Show.